Hey, bitch. See if this works. She's Shake It Up. That's her. That's her Wi-Fi. Shake It Up. It's just not doing a good job here.
Get on Shake It Up 5 out there.
You want me to go on Shake It Up 5?
Yeah, you can.
What's the password? $0RD 69.
Space Force.
An amazing job.
I wish I could have done more.
PASS @ $, so WO0RD 69. Sorry. Yes. For some reason, this isn't working though. Let's go back to this. Oh, it's live streaming somewhere. I just don't know where. Well, joy. I love when that happens. It says I'm live. Like under more, it says stop live stream, which is why it's weird. Hello, Bo. Hello, Autumn.
Hello.
Oh.
How are you?
Are you back in Florida?
No, that's why there are mountains behind me. But I leave tonight.
It looks beautiful there.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I'm like, I kind of don't want to leave, except for the fact that I'm in this like crazy high altitude. And my nose feels like frosted flakes. God, I miss humidity. Who's the baby in the picture?
That's my baby. That's Zoe. She's 7 now. This picture's super old, but.
Well, it's still adorable. Well, she's like 2 in that picture.
Yep.
Oh, and there's my handsome friend. Hello, Robert.
Hello. Do you guys hear me okay? My laptop, sometimes the audio gets a little funky.
Yes, we do hear you. What a nice background. Is that computer generated?
That's not my real background. That's fake.
No, that's what Chicago looks like. Remember sophisticated cities?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about sophisticated cities. It didn't happen anymore.
My office is a little bit of a mess, so I felt like this was a better view to have for everyone.
Well, we'll take it. I'm trying to see if this is streaming on Facebook or not.
It doesn't show it on our end, seriously.
It says stop streaming, but I've logged into another 20 minutes. Okay, for some reason, it's just not loading here.
Type community.investorparty.com because trying to do the investorparty.com thing, I realized didn't.
But that's not for us. Okay, one more second. I just want to make sure because if people want it, they want the link. This is typically what we do, but it's usually a little more organized, I promise, Robert. Don't judge me too badly.
I'm not judging.
Lies. You're so full of it. You totally do. Autumn, don't listen. He's lying about everything. By the way, Autumn is also a dancer in Hawaii. Robert was my student back in the day when he was in college. So that was fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's a long time. It feels like a long time ago, I guess.
It was a long time ago, honey.
Are you still dancing, Robert, or no?
Only socially for fun.
Oh, nice.
Goal is to get, well, I keep saying it, goal is to eventually get back at it, but I never seem to get around to getting back at it.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for a long time. Let's be very clear. I moved 7 years ago, so a long time. And since then, he's also gotten married. His beautiful wife moved here from Poland, finally. And she's still trying to get everything else established to be a doctor. Either way, we're going to get there in a second. All right, for some reason, I can't make this go live on Facebook. I'm trying my best. So we're going to start this recording, and if people want to watch it later, they certainly can. Admit all. We've got Carlos and Pamela coming in the room, which would be helpful. Stephanie's here. Hi, Stephanie. Josh. Let's see. No, let's see. We'll see what we can do about getting this on Facebook, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Okay, so we only have Robert for an hour, so I want to make sure we use him as best as we can. Yes, I know. I'm trying to stream on Facebook. That's why I just said. So we're trying to get it to work. It's just not working, although it says stop live stream. Whatever. We're going to continue. So, Robert, welcome to the party.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
Are you excited? You have no idea why you're here, do you? No idea.
No, I know. I have a general idea of why I'm here. I'm excited to be on, though. I am.
Well, that was an overstatement. See that plane? Surprisingly low. Apparently, we're by the airport. So right now we are in, for those of you who have not been paying attention for the past few weeks, we have been in Colorado Springs opening up our second home for Sherlock's Homes Foundation. So it's a mess inside because we've been doing so much. It looks so good. But I wanted to actually have some fresh air before we leave tonight. So Robert, we'll have to give you a tour before you're done today.
Okay. I just have that hard stop in an hour. It's a very hard stop. I literally have to get on the phone with one of my regular job bosses. So.
Cool. So we're glad to have you here regardless, Mr. Popular. For those of you who don't know Robert, well, you're in the presence of not so much genius, but just really cool company. I've known him for at least 12 years now. And he has been, he was in college when I met him. He graduated top of his class at Loyola University. He was the valedictorian for his department. He went from there to working at Deloitte right out of university. He was there for several years, worked on some big name accounts like Sears. He went from that to getting a job at BlackRock.
Blackstone.
Blackstone, sorry. Blackstone. The fact that he's always had a big desire to do real estate. He got his real estate license when, Robert? How long ago?
Oh, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there.
And do you have that before or after you started working for BlackRock?
I got it while I was working at Deloitte.
Deloitte, I remember that. Now, something that you guys also should know is that Robert bought his first property while he was in college. Is that not true, Robert?
Right after I graduated. Right after. Not technically. I was still not technically in school anymore.
Well, way to be. Okay, for those of you who can't also figure this out, Robert's much more analytical and than I am. So yeah, technicalities. He had just graduated high school when he closed. He put it under contract while he was still in school. So if we want to get really technical, I do remember that. So
fair enough.
Yeah, smart ass. Make my job harder. Why don't you? Anyway, so he bought his first property right after college because he wanted to have his first asset. Robert, tell us about that property in Norridge.
So it was a single family home. It was in the town that I grew up in. It's a very middle class neighborhood. And right after college, during college, at the very end of college, going towards graduation time, I was looking for just an opportunity to purchase something. It was 2013 at the time. Obviously, the crash had happened back in 07, 08. At that time, I didn't really understand what was going on. I had just started college at that point in time. So what I had started to realize, though, is that it seemed like the bottom had already been hit at least, and I was looking for an opportunity to find a home. And originally, I was even considering living in the home myself. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. There was an idea like, oh, maybe I'll rent it out if the numbers make sense. But I figured, regardless, I felt like the bottom had been hit, and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. So I was looking throughout the neighborhood. I was able to find this property. Worked out nicely too, because it happened to be, we were lucky enough to find it for sale by owners. So we were able to avoid any brokers being involved, and it worked itself out. And then after purchasing it, ended up eventually turning into a rental, held on to it for several years, and then eventually sold it 5-6 years later.
The rental was interesting how he did that, because he did use his primary address.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore he had a bed in there that was his room, and some mail being meant there that he would go and pick up. And so therefore he technically lived there, which is how he got the financing for it. And all the other rooms in the house were rented out by various individuals. Who were they? Who were the people that lived there?
So it's like a roommate style approach. So I did have one of the bedrooms, and I would actually spend time there. And then I had 2 roommates. For that first year, you're required, as part of traditional financing, to be owner occupied. So this was a good way of being able to do that. So I moved in the first few months, lived on my own, then eventually got some roommates to help with the rent and the mortgage. And then after that first year, I decided, this kind of makes sense. This is working. Let me get myself out of here, out of this bedroom, because the rental income would have been stronger if I could get a whole family and rent the whole house out, as opposed to renting out rooms. And we went ahead and did that. And it worked out quite well. It allowed me to have some cash flow on the side while kind of starting my regular job at that time.
Mm-hmm. And the people that you rented to, I'm trying to remember the guys, were they also first generation or
both were actually immigrants, yes. But I had found them really, I think actually both, I found either on Craigslist or Zillow, I forgot exactly, but I just listed the rooms for rent, and it worked itself out. Thankfully, they weren't crazy.
Thankfully, because you were enough.
I suppose.
Usually you're enough, yeah. In case you guys can't tell, Robert got to know me when he was still fun. So since then, he's been in the accounting world, and things have changed. I'm kidding. So you had several parties there, which I enjoyed. So the point is, though, what I want to show you here is he started off with single family. He actually moved to the property, got 2 renters to be roommates, which he found through mediums.
You're good, the airplane's gone.
So rude. I'm on a Zoom. Anyway, so it's the, so he found the mediums like you guys use, Craigslist, Facebook, Zillow, things like that. And then he decided to scale. So I just wanted you guys to see that he also found these individuals who were new to the country, which helped him, actually helped his community, because Robert is a first generation American, correct, Robert?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
His father has been in construction his entire life, I want to say.
Yep, right? That's ever since he moved to the U.S.
So do you feel like the fact that your dad was in construction helped you take on the scaling of your business because you knew how to remodel things?
Well, it was interesting because my dad is a big proponent of education. So he actually kept me away from his business. I was always excited, like not kept me away in a way that was, cutting me off from the business, but it was more, I don't want you focusing on doing construction. I want you focusing on going to school, because the work is obviously very hard labor, and it's a very difficult job. It's very taxing on your body. That said, I was still exposed, obviously. I was with my dad often. I did help him out on job sites, and my dad eventually built the home we lived in for a while too. So I was always around construction in some way, shape, or form. I think from a scaling perspective, it was a combination of seeing what my parents had done. And from my parents, it was more the work ethic, I think, is what I took from them. And this mentality that the only thing stopping you is really you. And everyone's capable of anything, really. And I guess I'm very grateful from that perspective, because my parents came here, as cliche as it sounds, literally with nothing, and made something of themselves. And I'm a strong believer that anyone and everyone can do that. So I take that from my parents. And then from the education side, I guess, I think focusing, like for why I had majored in accounting and econ, I had no intentions of staying in accounting, but I did it because I felt like it was a very strong foundational background to have. Do you understand how a business is built? You understand how it works and how the numbers flow? You understand then it really allows you to scale, because you know how the numbers flow through, you know what leverages, you know how to correctly utilize debt without over leveraging yourself. And I think having that skill set really, I guess, is what gave me the confidence to scale more so than anything else. When you scale, you just got to do it carefully and methodically.
Intentionally.
Yes. You
Yeah.
don't want to be a
I
chicken
actually love
with
that you
its
said
head
that.
off.
I remember when you were in college, you were looking at something. You were trying to do something financing wise for the house, and you had to reallocate some of your student debt and your credit card debt and something like that. And you were talking about, I don't remember what the strategy was exactly now. I just remember it being really fancy, and I was very scared myself, because at that time I was of the belief that if you use credit cards, you were going to get hurt and screwed. And you clarified how to do it without over leveraging, which I thought was really interesting, although I was still scared shitless. So now things have changed. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about like what you did next. So you had one single family home.
Mm-hmm.
And then you did what?
I started to really just aggressively network. I wanted to grow into something bigger than single family homes, through networking, just meeting people, telling them kind of what I'm interested in. I was introduced to others, and long story short, I was introduced to two other individuals that were also basically interested in doing what I was doing. However, their background was construction. They were not numbers guys. But they had always wanted to do something beyond working for clients and just doing construction work for others. So we had identified, it was a 6-unit building that needed a complete gut rehab. It was extremely dilapidated. It was at that point in time, the Chicago Department of Buildings actually had marked it as not only uninhabitable but unsafe. And if we did not find financing in the next few months, they would actually come in and demolish the building, which is not unusual in the city of Chicago. It's very common that this happens. So we were able to partner up together, kind of pool our funds, and really our ability to, quote unquote, pool our funds was because I was doing kind of everything I could to maximize my cash flow. So actually what happened after that first year of opening that single family home, I went ahead and moved back in with my parents. And I stayed with my parents actually until I was 29. I'm 31 right now. And I did that on purpose. And it was really to maximize my cash flow. And that allowed me to scale.
So how did you select the building? Since it was already in a crap area, it was a crap building, you said, and you had to maximize your cash flow so you could acquire financing. All those things coming up, you first selected the building. So it was how many units again?
6.
And why did you select a 6 flat?
It's a little bit of an involved story, but the way we acquired the building is through what's called a scavenger sale in the city of Chicago. I'm not sure if other cities or counties do this, but if someone stops paying their property taxes for an extended amount of time, the property will eventually go up for auction. And in the case of the city of Chicago, the auction is administered by the city themselves. It's a convoluted process. You do need to get an attorney. I honestly still don't quite really understand all the nuances of it, because it seems more involved than it needs to be. And then what you do is you are bidding on the rights to the deed. So you don't actually get the deed if you win. You have the rights to the deed. And after 2 years, if the prior owner never comes back and pays those back taxes, then you can file to go through the process to then put the deed in your name. But obviously you're acquiring this property as is, and you're going to deal with everything that comes with it. And there's a lot that comes with that kind of a transaction. but I felt confident because I had the construction guys kind of with me, and building a team is so important, just in general, in anything you do, not even in real estate. You can't do everything by yourself, especially as you try to grow and scale. It becomes overwhelming, and you need people who are experts in their fields, and we were able to kind of get this one to work. We got construction financing. It was a commercial loan that also required a lot of networking. You can't just get a commercial gut rehab loan. It doesn't happen overnight.
You got to have credibility for one.
Yeah, so that was an interesting process. We learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes along the way too. But we kind of dove head first, and before we obviously did all of it, we did run some numbers and tried to create enough of a cushion that even if things went wrong or went somewhat wrong, there was enough buffer there to make it work. And thankfully, it all kind of worked itself out.
So, so what you guys just heard is pretty much how a tax lien or tax deed acquisition starts. Because typically you buy the note, you buy the debt, pay the back taxes, because the city still needs to pay their fire department, their police department, the sewers, the roads. They still need their property taxes to make things run. So in other words, Robert acquired it. How much did you acquire that building for? Do you remember?
I want to say it was approximately around 22 or 23,000.
$23,000 for a 6-unit apartment building. Okay.
That needed
you had to wait. So
completely uninhabitable. Yes.
What was that?
Completely uninhabitable.
Completely uninhabitable piece of crap, 6 flat, which, okay, we get. So let's go over these numbers. So I wanted to work on deal analysis with you guys today. For those of you who are part of Real Estate Survivor, or are going to be a part of season 2 for Real Estate Survivor, we are going to be doing multi-unit and mobile home park acquisition. So you have to learn how to run numbers. This is one of my favorite ways of doing it, is by having someone who's good with numbers like Robert explain it to you. So you bought it for about we'll say $25,000 for the ease of my brain, but then he had to wait. You had to wait how many months, Robert?
It was 2 years. I won't go, I have a tendency to get very technical as to how it all works, but
no,
essentially 2 years. I won't go through the
yes.
nuances.
So the right of redemption took 2 years for the previous owner to say, I'm not paying the taxes, I don't want the building back, and he walked away from the property, which meant that Robert and his colleagues were able to take it on officially. But for those 2 years, he still had to pay property taxes on that building, correct?
Technically, no. You're required to pay the taxes, but only after the 2-year period.
Only after the 2-year period.
Yeah,
so
after the
part
2-year
between that 2-year period is still accruing?
Yes, the city, in our case, Cook County was still going after the prior owner. So the taxes are still accruing in that 2-year redemption period. Mm-hmm. But you're not required, if you then eventually get those, the rights to the deed, you're not required to, I think Stephanie flipped her screen.
Which looks like Elphaba from Wicked. It should have like alopecia.
Just threw me off a little bit there. What was I saying?
Cook County requires.
So you pay for those 2 years only after the 2-year period if you are the one that is, if you're able to then redeem the deed.
Perfect. So that pretty much is, and that's very common, and here in most of the states, they all do it somewhat differently. I did not know that Cook County, in where we are in Florida, you pay the deed, or we are a tax lien and tax deed state in Florida. So we acquire the deed. We acquire the lien usually first. We pay the taxes, and we keep up the property taxes with an interest rate. That is a bid down process in Florida, which means they'll say, okay, this $25,000 sixplex, we have, it's $25,000 and 12% interest, and then the next investor will say, okay, we'll pay 11.5%. Then the one after that goes, we'll pay 11%, and then 10%, and so on and so forth, until the lowest bid down offer wins. So during that time, you still pay the taxes in Florida, you still pay the taxes on the property, but then if the owner decides to redeem that property, then you get your money back plus interest. So in a tax lien and deed state, you get both. You get one of two options. You either get a cheap property or you get money on your money. It's one of the two, right? How do you lose? You really don't. More often than not, you get money on your money, from what I've noticed. There are exceptions, but that also is cyclical based on where you are in that market. And Robert, I don't know if you know this or not, but because we are a nonprofit, I get access to those auctions before you do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Aren't you so, see, I love when I can teach you something. He teaches me everything. For the first few years in real estate, I would call Robert and he would explain so much to me. So this is really cool. Anyway, so he got the $6. Now, how much did you guys need? So you got hard money financing, correct?
Mm-mm.
No, you got commercial funding.
We got a commercial funding, but it's through an organization. So again, I'm going to try not to be so damn technical. The big banks, Chase, Bank of America, so on and so forth, the federal government requires them to earmark a certain percentage of their funds into investing into underdeveloped neighborhoods. The big banks don't have the administrative know-how or the time and energy available to administer these types of programs. So what they do is they take those funds and they work with other organizations who are also lending institutions to administer the programs on their behalf. In our case, in the city of Chicago, there's a company called Community Investment Corporation, or CIC. They only, as far as I understand, they only lend in Chicago. That is a part of whatever their mission is, I suppose. And you work with them directly. They are in this neighborhood that I was in. It's on the near west side of Chicago. It's a very rough neighborhood. There's no sugarcoating that piece of it. There are very few lenders that are willing to take on that level of risk. So you have to go through someone like a CIC, and they will provide financing for you, including construction financing, but you need a track record. And we worked with them to secure that financing. It was a commercial loan. When you get construction financing, there are several fees you incur to get that financing. So there's a lot of other like upfront costs that you have to,
like points and so on and so forth.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Elevated interest rate during the construction period, things like that.
No, and in your first deal with really any lender, it doesn't really about the track record does help, but especially when you get started, those fees are quite substantial.
Correct. Yeah, they can
so
really.
You might need $150,000 for a project, net. That means you got to finance like $200,000 because of all the points and fees and closing costs and blah blah blah. It's quite
correct.
Something. Like numbers are always frustrating that way. But the numbers that Robert would get would be different than the ones I would get because now he's got a track record with them and then I don't. So relationships matter, which is why I'm so glad you started with that, Robert. So you got the commercial lending from Community Investment
Corporation, CIC.
CIC, from CIC. And you started, and so how much did you lend? Did you borrow?
This was back in 2014. So I can't, it was around 240,000, but that's an all-in cost. And that is an extremely, yeah, that's everything. That's escrowing funds. You have to, there's a lot of, all the fees, all the holdbacks you have to do. The construction financing is a 3-hour conversation in and of itself. But yes, 240 or roughly all in. That's,
hey, well, make sure we get a construction financing call set up. Cool.
But long story short, at that point in time, because of the construction connections we had, and we were all kind of, I guess, young and hustlers. We're still young. I'm not saying we're not, but we got creative. We went to construction auctions to get materials to keep our costs down. A lot of labor was done in-house. We did anything and everything to make it work. You cannot do a 6-unit gut renovation at that price. Even in 2014, it was a stretch. Today, that same building, if we were to gut it today, even if we were getting creative and trying to keep all our costs down, it's going to be at least double minimum. Is labor and materials have gone up so much in cost.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think the cost of material and construction and labor, why do you think that's gone up so much in the past 5 years?
I have an answer if you want one.
I know you do. Hold on, wait, I'm making them think for a second.
Well, could it also be that, I'm thinking right now, like the dollar is losing value, so it needs to overcompensate for.
That's a part of it. I would say it's a smaller part of the puzzle.
Yes,
Wouldn't it be just because like you've had growth and expansion in both residential and commercial properties. So it's like, of course, if you're booming with development, you're gonna boom, and you know, prices are gonna increase. It's supply and demand, basically.
Exactly. So that's not to say that, Stephanie, Josh, you also have a good answer. All of you are correct, but it really comes down to it's been a healthy economy. So because in 2014 and before then, after the recession in 2009, there were contractors galore who needed work and would take anything because they had to feed their families, right? So there's this labor force that was ready to work, but there was no work to be had. So therefore, costs for labor were low, construction material was low. But as the economy has improved over the past few years, or the past decade really, you've seen the profit margins on things like flips have gotten much tighter because the cost of labor and material have gone up since everyone has work and they can be selective with the jobs that they take and the bids that they accept. But yes, you're right, the tariffs are also big.
The other really big piece of it is a lack of qualified labor available. In America, we do not encourage these professions, which actually really bothers me. It's just one of my like personal like qualms or something. It's people go to college. Sometimes what I'm trying to get is you can be an electrician, you can make a very, very solid living, and we should encourage more people to do that.
To go into
not everyone is meant out. Yeah, not everyone's built for school. Not everyone's meant to be in school. And it should never be looked down upon. And it really frustrates me that it is in this country. Drives me crazy.
I agree 100%. I was lucky. I went to college for the arts. Woohoo, Stephanie, you feel me? And it literally is like, well, let's see how broke I could start off my career as an actor, dancer, artist. Like, why not? But I had a trade. I was very fortunate because I decided to go into dancing because I knew it was a trade and I would be a commodity for at least 15 years, which I did. And that definitely helped. But I think people like my brother, school failed my brother. You know, he tried very hard for a very long time to get into the apprentice school at the Northrop Grumman shipyard. And for about 10 years he tried. He got in, he worked his assets off. It's not his thing, as hard as he worked. But he had a skill that he developed, which allowed him to go find a job elsewhere, and he can make a decent living now because he does have a trade. I think trades need to be given more respect here in general, so I agree with you. So back to the story at hand, because I'm trying to make sure I mind the time and I know where I'm going with this. So you got a property, you're all in it now for 200 and what was it, 50?
Roughly, yeah, 250.
Okay, let's say 250. So Josh, get your calculator right. I'm going to have you do the calculator stuff. Awesome. So there were 6 units, $250,000. So that was all done, which means each unit was worth what, Josh? 250 divided by 6. Not worth. They were bought for.
About $42,000.
$42,000 a door. That was everything from acquisition and remodel and made up to living code, right? Carrying costs, so on and so forth. So $42,000 into this project per door, right? Robert, how much did each one of those units, did you turn them into condos or did you turn them into rentals?
All rentals.
All rentals. And what was each door renting for?
On average, probably around 900.
900 a month. Okay. So 9 times 6 is 15, right?
54.
54. Thank you. 15. What was it for? In my head, I saw 54. 54. So that was $5,400 a month, correct?
That's right.
What was the debt?
No, 54. I'm sorry. No, I got myself confused. You did the whole building. So yes, 5,400 grossing for the whole building. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wasn't doing it by unit.
What was it for? I have a point where I'm getting to for that later. So this is 42 per unit. I want you guys to remember that for later. So you have this property, 240 is the debt service. Do you remember the terms or how much the debt service was a month?
Call it, or I don't recall it, but call it around 6% interest.
What was that?
6% over, I think it was a 25-year amortization.
240 loan, and you didn't have a down payment, correct? Because you already.
It was a 10%. It was a 10% down payment. But again, construction financing is I'm really oversimplifying it.
I know, I get it. That's the whole point, is to do that. Oh gosh, no, my phone apparently needs to cool down before I can use it. Don't know why.
That
So-
service was approximately, I think, like 20, no, I'm getting the buildings mixed up. Never mind. I'm not going to throw numbers out. Maybe it was like 1,800 a month or something.
So
Somewhere else.
1,800
But
a month
that's
is
with escrow though, with taxes and insurance also.
okay. So their monthly debt service in this building was about 1,800 a month. They're bringing in 1,800, right, a month debt service.
Debt service, but including escrow, so including the taxes and insurance.
Yeah, so their pity payment for this property, which in commercial is not necessarily required, but in this case it was. So then you subtract, see, it was 54 minus 18 is what? 12,
600,
60,
3,600.
3,600?
Mhm.
Who's doing the math for that? I don't trust you.
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm just kidding. So 36, now multiply that by 12. $43,200. Okay, so now divide that number by 250,000. That gives,
1.73.
that gives them a 1.7%. Sorry, a 17% return on their money. Which, since they had none of their own real money, did you have any of your real money in it?
In this one, yes. This one, yes.
How much do you have in it? The 10% for the loan?
I don't know. With you call it like 40-ish, roughly 10% of the 240. Well, 10% is only 24,000, but again, because of how construction financing works.
I get it. So even if they had $40,000 into their own money, if they made 43.5 or 43.6, did they make all their money back in the first year? Yes or no? Did they actually walk away with an asset that's bringing value to them as a company and as individuals? Yes or no? So they're
Yes.
raising their net worth. Was this also in Pilsen?
No, this is in a neighborhood called North Lawndale, which is
North
west of Pilsen. It's about 10, 15 minutes driving west of Pilsen.
So how long? And so you kept that property for how long?
We own it today.
They still own it. Okay, so it's now they've definitely got their money out of it by now because they're making $43,000 a year back then, which they probably have increased rents. Let's try to be real. He is a businessman. So for the past 5 years, they're making $43,500 or whatever it was every year. Did they make their money back? Yes or no? And then some. So now they have an asset. There you go, 217.5. So now they have an asset that's actually cash flowing for them. They have, I'm sure at this point, knowing Robert, he's probably refinanced that property a couple of times or jumbo loaned or blah, blah, blah. So that property is an asset that's actually cash flowing producing, which is why they kept it. So it just made sense. So we went from single family home to learning about these tax liens and deeds and auctions and things like that to actually doing the work. He networked like crazy, found people who had like minds and perspectives to him, found lenders who were willing to take a work on him, found a program that was actually able to help him fund the deal, and then he got the deal closed and kept an eye on it. He didn't just set it and forget it. As you just said, he still owns that building. He still owns that property. And I bet you if I had given him enough more notice about what I was going to ask him, then he probably would have actually researched his closing documents and had all the numbers in his beautiful little brain of his. So well done, Robert. So that was 2015. What happened next? You got another property soon thereafter, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we ended up. I want to just clarify something too. This isn't me to. I like to put asterisks on things. Again, I know I said it already. Those construction costs are not typical costs. Those are much lower than you typically see out there, and especially today. Today's costs are ridiculous. They really are. I don't know how else to say it, to the point that we have turned in this environment, we've turned deals down that are gut rehab because the costs are so exorbitant. Anyway, the single family home, I still owned it at that time. So we took out a HELOC, a line of credit against it, home equity line of credit. I believe that's what it was called. Either way, we took a loan against the home. Those funds were used to purchase actually the neighbor's property, who also, that property was also 6 units, needed a ton of work. And we did the same thing. We bought it. Well, not the same thing. This wasn't a tax sale or anything like that. It was someone selling their building. We bought the building. We went again to CIC, financed it, did the construction on it. and ended up renting it out. But this was a year later, and I think the cost on that one already ended up being, I think, like 330 or 350, something like that. So in only a year and a half's time, costs started to really climb. And as you try to scale, it's a lot harder to continue to do things in-house. So certain things are going to need to give. And cost had to give a little bit. That doesn't mean the numbers didn't make sense. They still make sense. It's just the margins got a little bit tighter.
So they started to outsource some of the product. They already knew that. We see the thing that I love that you just said too, is it was the neighbor's building. You already knew that neighborhood. You already had clientele that were living in that building, and probably a wait list of people who want to be in that building that could go into the one next to it. So if you were a building that was looking at 123, if you were a tenant looking to rent in 123 Main Street and you couldn't get in, the 125 Main Street right next door now has a unit for sale, managed by the same people, same construction, same neighborhood. Would you consider that building? Of course you would, because it's right there. It's the neighbor, right? So he got to know that demographic really, really, really well in that neighborhood. How many properties did you end up buying in that neighborhood, Robert?
Today we own 4 properties in the neighborhood.
4 properties, each being a multi-unit?
Yes. 3 of them are, 2 are 6 units each, one's a 7 and one's a 9.
So we have 6, 6, 7, and 9. Over the course of how many years? 5 years? It's 2020, right?
The last one we actually bought last week.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's the 9 unit?
That is a 6. Well, it's a 6 with a 7. There's a non-conforming garden unit. So there's a unit in the basement that it's probably not up to code. There's certain, I'm not going to get into nuances of how non-conforming units work in the city of Chicago, but we'll call it 6 units, just to keep it simple.
We have another call coming up. That's not a 3-hour conversation because, Chicago, I miss you so much.
There's a whole history of non-conforming units. It's kind of interesting. It goes back to Chicago and corrupt politicians, basically.
Chicago doesn't have corrupt politicians. What are you talking about?
No one does better.
Stop that. I remember living there. There were saints, every one of them. So how many doors do you control right now?
Today we're up to 59 apartments across 8 buildings. We're primarily. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just repeating.
Oh yeah, and we're primarily in North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago in a neighborhood called South Shore, which is on the far south side of Chicago, but it's right on Lake Michigan. So anywhere between 76th to 81st Street, which it sounds what it sounds like. If you start at downtown, you're at 0, and if you go 76 streets down, you'll get to South Shore. But you got to go east to get towards the lake. So
is that actually an opportunity zone area?
I believe it is, but to take advantage of opportunity zone, you have to have capital gain.
So never mind.
No, at least not.
Yeah. So that's going to be a whole other conversation for some other time. So now they control. So now beyond that, now this is what Robert was doing on his own on the side, building his business, right? Meanwhile, simultaneously, he has a day job. At this point in time, Rob, what are you doing?
So I'm a W-2 salaried employee. I work for a private equity firm that deals with multifamily real estate. So the intention there was I wanted to try and work at a company where what I'm learning can be applied to my own business, but as obviously I'm interested in real estate. So it works both ways. I do enjoy my day job, but it obviously allows me to do things outside of my day job in a more effective way. Or at least I like to think so. I don't know, maybe I'm...
We're not just wasting your time 9 to 5 in your everyday life. You're actually learning something and applying it. So you're able to maximize what you do in a day and what you do in your life.
Yep. You can't hear the plane, so just don't worry about it.
So I think that's really important. There's a really great book, if you guys haven't read it, it's called Mastery by Robert Greene. And he talks about, is that the one I want to talk about? It's Mastery. Yeah, Mastery by Robert Greene, yeah. And he talks about how it's in your 20s where you start gathering life experience. So you work to learn, Then in your 30s, you start working to earn. So I thought it was a really cool conversation because Robert did that through his entire 20s. So Robert, what do you think the biggest difference is between you starting off young as a first generation American in Chicago, working your butt off to get the degrees you had, to get the positions you had, but then you could have easily gotten stuck into a very comfortable W-2 job. You actually did something. What was it that made you do something?
I think as simple as it might sound, I really do think it just comes down to work ethic. And that's not me just patting myself on the back. When since what I like to think is it's not really, there's nothing to do with age. You can do this at any age. My parents weren't able to do it until they were much further along in their lives because they immigrated over and they had to build some sort of nest. Like that, you can do this at any point in time in your life. There's nothing stopping anyone from doing anything. And again, I'm just a very firm believer in if you set your mind to it, you can do it. It's just are you willing to grind and are you willing to kind of roll with the punches? Because there's going to be a lot of punches and some of them are going to hit you really, really hard. And there's times where you're going to wake up and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? This is painful. And there are days like that where you're just like, this is exhausting. There's so many moving pieces, especially when you're doing a day job at the same time. However, for me, there's a bigger purpose for me here too. I do enjoy real estate. I enjoy the idea of investing in neighborhoods that have been at times neglected and underdeveloped. The numbers obviously make sense in these neighborhoods, but at the same time, you do feel like you're part of something bigger and you're making a difference while also being able to do it in a way that's profitable.
So you feel like you're serving a community.
Yeah, it is. And I want to be clear too, is like, I don't have a preference for not for profit or not for profit. It just sometimes I think, being in these neighborhoods, I've had a lot of discussions with like local aldermen or local like city officials, and they talk about we need more affordable housing, so on and so forth. And what I also try and explain to people is things cost money. And investors need some sort of return on their investment to justify doing these things. And that's it's not anyone being against anyone. It's just the numbers shake out the way they do. And it's difficult sometimes to make it work because costs can be so difficult the numbers are difficult to make work sometimes. So at the end of the day, we've been fortunate enough to make it work and we've been able to kind of grow something out of it. And now I kind of have wandered away from your original question, Jacob. I actually forgot what it was.
I love where you're going with it. Keep going.
But when it comes to, for me, what I think it comes down to is, are you willing to put the work in and kind of set your mind to it? And if you're willing to grind, because it is a grind. It can turn into something pretty cool and it can work. And my goal, hopefully one day, is to maybe do this full time. And move away maybe from my full-time job, even though I do very much enjoy my full-time job. But I can't do that until I get to a certain scale. And I think I've heard this too just through networking. I'm sorry, there's some background noise. That some people, I guess in the past, have made the jump away from their W-2 employee job too quickly. And it's at times hindered their ability to scale maybe as quickly as they had originally envisioned. But again, different stories, different people. I'm going to close my window because it's really loud.
Sure. So, but yeah, I agree with that 100% with what you're saying as far as you want to know when it's appropriate for you to make that transition. But you will always be if you think about when it's appropriate for you to make that jump, you will always be ready ahead of it. Why? Because you're mentally in the game, ready to go. So if things don't go according to plan, you start rolling with the punches even before they happen. Something that I found that has happened, and you guys tell me what you think about this, I've noticed that when you really want something, there's always going to be an obstacle that comes out of nowhere, right? It's because it's kind of like the universe is testing you, like, do you really want this? Do you really want to marry this girl? Do you really want to buy this house? Do you really want to dye your hair that blonde? Like, the universe will start doing these things and make and test you. They will never be as hard as the tests we give ourselves, because we are always in our own way, always. So yeah, you might get a flat tire on the way to the wedding, But if you decide to go and fix it up and you can actually get there, awesome. But if you decide to read into that flat tire as an omen that does that, God doesn't want you marrying that person, well, then that's your own issue. That's your own obstacle. Do you see the difference I'm trying to make there? Anyway.
It's a very valid point, though. I think it's if there's a will, there's a way, and this is more philosophical, I guess. But at the end of the day, we all have control over our emotions and our reactions, and it's us, as people who are in control of those. And too often, I think we blame others for the way we react or the way we act, and it's very easy to point the finger. It's a lot harder to point the finger back at yourself and kind of take control and take accountability. And for me, it's been a very, I really try to remind myself of that sometimes, especially when I struggle. And there's days where I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. This is tough. If there's a will, there's a way. And at the end of the day, I have control over the situation. And if you that mindset, while you may not always be in control of the situation per se, but that mindset helps carry you through sometimes. And it's that attitude is a big part of this.
I agree, 100%. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also been the most rewarding. Because everything I do, I'm creating. And it kind of gets easier, and then it gets harder. Then it gets easier, then it gets harder, then it gets easier. But having a like-minded community makes a huge difference. So when you get frustrated or feel like giving up, give someone that you trust that knows and supports what you're doing. Give them a call. Tell them what you're doing. See if they got a solution for you or just an ear. And that makes a huge difference in your success rate. It really does. Now, Robert is also a licensed real estate agent in Illinois, correct, Robert?
Mm-hmm. And I primarily did that because brokers start to get on my nerves. As I decided to just get my own license because I didn't want to, it's nothing against brokers. I just think I ran into some iffy situations where some of the brokers I had worked with, I think were more interested in closing the deal than making sure that we got a deal that made sense for the client, which in that case, I was the client. So I kind of got fed up and decided this isn't too hard. I'm pretty sure I can get my own license, and I went ahead and did it.
1 second. Let's say goodbye to Courtney. Where are you heading off to?
Take a nap, but I know that you guys are leaving soon.
So Courtney, come say hi to everybody, the public in my crotch. So hi. This is Courtney. She's a member of the house here in Colorado Springs. She's representing. Yay. Say that.
I love it.
So I wanted everybody to say hi so you guys can recognize one of the faces of the lives we're helping to change.
Hello.
Glad to be here. It's been so much fun. It really has been. Hi, Courtney. Jessica says hi. All right. Have fun. See you later. I'll be back in a couple weeks.
I'm tired. I just did a bunch of errands.
Oh, well, good for you. I'm glad you can do that. You'll be taking Stock Market Survivor soon, so.
Good. I'm ready.
You better be.
All right.
Hi. So you got yours because you were sick of dealing with idiot brokers. I feel the same way.
I guess I don't really have anything else to add to that besides that's why I did it. I did it so I could have
the commission to the deal.
It depends on the deal. Well, usually when you're getting into commercial, which at least in Chicago, I assume this is in most places because at least how lending works. If 5 units or more is considered commercial, in the city of Chicago, you are not going to find, typically, you're not going to find apartment units that are 5 or more units listed on a public listing service. So it's not going to go on the realtor network. It's going to be completely through commercial brokerages who have their own networks, who have their own groups of people they like to work with. And you got to build those networks. But then again, that's if you're going for the commercial. If you're doing anywhere between 1 to 4 units, you will find the vast majority of it on the MLS or the public listing services.
Well, Robert, I'm so glad you came on and that you were taking the time to speak to us your knowledge. By the way, guys, I offered to hire Robert like 5 years ago, and I'm going to one day. So now we've made that public. We're going to make that happen. So Stephanie, we're intentioning it. Got it? Cool, we got it. Do you guys have any questions for Robert? What was that?
We're declaring it that we're hiring Robert.
That's right. He's gonna leave his W-2 job and come work for us. Hey. So
I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, and then I guess we have about 10 minutes or so left. Okay.
What are some of the biggest factors you look at when analyzing a deal's numbers?
Don't just look at the numbers. Look at the property. walk it, understand it, make sure that what you're buying makes sense, right? The numbers might look really good, but you get in and it's all cast iron plumbing and it hasn't been touched in 50 years, right? That's a cost you're going to incur. So numbers are important, don't get me wrong. I'm clearly a numbers person. However, that's one piece of this puzzle, and you got to get the right team in place. You have to work with the right people you feel comfortable with that share the same goals with you, that you can trust. And there's going to be times where you're gonna butt heads. These partners I work with primarily, we yell at each other regularly. But it works because we're not yelling because we want to yell. I think we're all passionate about what we're doing and want to make sure it's done right. And sometimes you get into some heated conversations, but that's okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm interested to know, what's been your biggest obstacle? Has it been the cast iron plumbing that ever came up unexpectedly one time, or what's been one of those you did not expect this headache to show up and it showed up?
It actually does have to do with the cast iron, ironically. So that very first 6 units, we had planned to do so we planned to do all the plumbing in the building itself. What we never planned to do was do the main drain that runs underneath the basement foundation that goes into the sewer. We were just going to connect the PVC to it and call it a day. Long story short, that drain collapsed. So you had to dig into the basement. So that gets extremely expensive. Was there a way for your inspectors to notice that beforehand, or? Yeah, what we do is we usually self-inspect, but what we do now, because of that experience, is you can get a camera down any drain. And every single time we buy a building now, we put a camera down the drains. Every single one of them. Make sure nothing's collapsed.
Don't they always say the first one's always the one that you probably don't make money on? It's going to be the biggest one with all the mistakes and hiccups so that you learn how to do it moving forward.
We learned hard on that one, and at least in the city too, if you're 5 or more units, the city is going to require you to actually dig in the street, and you as the owner are going to incur that cost. If you're 4 units or less, the city will dig in the street for you. That's a good thing to know. So at least in the city of Chicago, 4 units are extremely desirable. They go extremely fast, and there's a lot of benefits to owning 4 units in the city of Chicago.
Cool.
Well,
especially when you don't have to put in an elevator if you're over 3 floors too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, what?
Yeah. In Chicago, if you have a building that's over 3 floors, you technically by law have to have an elevator. So all these duplexes that are side by sides, 6 or 8 flats or whatever. So if you're over 3 floors, elevators required.
I think it's if you hit the 4th floor, right? Because
if you go to the 4th floor for residential living, you have to have an elevator.
Which is why I always lived on the 2nd floor.
I'm thinking about I live in New York, and we have pre-war buildings and you gotta walk up them flights of stairs.
Yeah, you gotta go 6, 7 flights up.
And trust me, I've always lived on a top floor in Chicago, so it was always 3 flights of stairs, lugging up every day with groceries and you name it. It was fun.
When I lived on the top floor, the 5th floor of my walk up, I had the best killer legs and butt for that whole year.
Well, on that
maybe
note,
that's what's
about
missing.
Stephanie's ass.
I live on the 1st floor now.
Well, I wanted to go ahead and say, Robert, it is just about time to get to your meeting. Thank you so much for being on here. We adore you. I'm going to go ahead and plug the rest of the week real quick, so both stay on hand. Tonight we have Stock Market Survivor for people who are taking Stock Market Survivor. That's tonight and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. On Tuesday, Thursday, we do not have Real Estate Survivor. We're taking a break for the next couple of weeks, but this is the time you guys are building out your websites and setting up your systems. So please be sure to get with your proper teammates. Those are Marlon, Lindsay, Nelson, and Leanne, so they can help you guys build your systems. Real Estate Survivor Season 2, if you have been invited to it, we are going to be starting that come the beginning of November. I'll be looking for an email on that from me and Bo coming up here probably sometime this week. So this week or beginning next week. So I'll work on that. We are making great progress with our DC grant and what we're trying to accomplish there. So that's been a lot to do. We're going to keep working on that. If you want to participate, let us know. And let's see. The Colorado House has been an amazing experience. Casa de Mariposa is absolutely stunning, guys. It's now livable. Yay! We have every bedroom is now livable. Is it perfect? No. Is it clean? Some of them. Are they ready to go? Yes. So we can actually go ahead and start taking people in and saving their lives and building a community, which is all we want to do. It's so exciting to see what we're doing here. So I'm really excited. And Jessica Laney, mwah, we love you. You're amazing. You've been an amazing hostess. We're so glad to be here, and we're going to miss you. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say. Am I missing anything, Bo? Oh, Wednesday we are going to be having a panel on our 3 o'clock investor party with Parminder Batra, who Robert knows, and Tim Sperry from Small Armor Paint. So we're going to have Track and Protect, as well as Small Armor Paint, talking about the future of technology and eco-friendly business systems. So be here on Wednesday. That's actually going to be a ton of fun. What? And then we're going to have seed investing with Stephanie's mother. She's going to be here on Friday. Stephanie, what's your mom's name? Plug it.
Perla Guinness?
Like the beer, but not spelled at all.
Yeah, she's,
so we're going to be learning a little more about seed investing on Friday with her, correct?
Yeah, she's going to be talking about like seed investing and we're probably going to ask the metaphor, like the philosophical question: is it considered bartering or is it considered trading or investing? How we're going to look at it? Like that's kind of how because she thinks that's bartering, and I'm like, no, Mom, that's trading. We're trading commodities.
Oh, Lord, child, this will be interesting. So we're going to have a great time with that on Friday, and be looking out. If you've not joined investorparty.com, go on to investorparty.com and apply. And then from that, I think that's about it. Please like us on social media. Guys, you're amazing. And until the next party, party on. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert.
No problem.